What's up, guys? Welcome to the Real Estate Virgins podcast, where we are here to elevate your business, take your business to the next level. We're agents that are boots on the ground, doing the do. Walking the
John's
walk.
hot out the gates.
Yeah. Walking the walk, not talking the talk. Oh, shoot. That's interesting. We got a third mic for our guest that will be here shortly. A lot of things going on, but I will say we do not run ads. We don't have sponsors. The one thing that we do ask is we're trying to provide as much value as possible. So if you could leave us a like, a comment, a review, or follow us on Instagram for sure. My personal is at John Michael Perez, but our Real Estate Virgins podcast Instagram is at Real Estate Virgins podcast, right?
Yeah.
What's your Instagram?
What's going on, guys? Jordan Brown. You can find me at Jordan Sells ATX. Like John said, if you are looking for more information as far as how to stay involved with what we're doing, Instagram's the way to go. Keep up with a bunch of agents that are trying to kill it in 2023 and beyond. You're in the right place, baby. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
What an explosive week it's been since our last recording.
Yeah, it has been. Here
Hey,
it
hey.
is.
How's it going?
Mid-recording, we've got Tiffany.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is going to say a lot about Tiffany. What kind of water is she getting?
Oh, yeah, there's...
Do you want a flavored one? Do you want a regular, like a sparkling one? What do you want?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, sparkling. That's great. Mango.
Cool. So,
Welcome.
a lot of things going on this week when it comes to real estate. You want to talk about the lawsuit?
Yeah, man. Big update. So if you don't know, and if you've been living under a rock for the last few days, the NAR lawsuit in Missouri just came back, and
Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, so impossible to miss it, but just in case this is your first time hearing it, the National Association of Realtors and some other entities have been found guilty of basically like collusion to raise agent commissions by a jury in Missouri.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's so ridiculous. We just talked about this a couple weeks ago on the pod, and I can't believe it's even gotten to this point because it seemed like such an open shut case. But here we are. And of course, NAR is going to appeal it. And I was actually going to read the update that I got.
But before we do that, let's welcome Tiffany.
Yeah,
How you doing?
absolutely.
Hey. Hi, guys.
So we're in downtown Austin. If you don't know, that's where we record, and traffic's crazy. And there's also like the setup for this studio is very interesting because it's across the street from the garage, and it's a little. So hopefully, it wasn't too hard to find this place.
No, actually, it wasn't. I got lucky. I got street parking in front of Whole Foods.
Oh,
There we
very
go.
nice.
Lucky. Hey,
So-
you need to get a lotto ticket on the way
yeah,
home.
I was like, ooh, yes.
Yeah, nice.
So no.
Small victories.
Yeah.
So Tiffany Proske, if I'm
Yeah.
she's an awesome agent. She's done a lot of deals. She actually was an appraiser before, correct?
Well, I still am.
Yes.
I am a certified general appraiser here in the state of Texas.
Very cool.
I actually work for a company called Citus AMC, working on large commercial multifamily portfolios. I work for them remotely.
That's got to be some awesome experience to have when you're an agent too.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that's very helpful when like you're running comps and everything because you know exactly what people like appraisers are going to look for.
Yeah.
That's true.
Some unique perspective to be had there, which is really cool. An extra tool in your tool belt.
Yeah, it was definitely a value proposition that, when I first started in my career as a realtor, that I would tell people, hey, I'm also an appraiser, So when I tell you what I feel like we should list your home for, you should probably listen to me.
Yeah.
So real quick, have you ever had someone like combat your experience and think that they knew better than you and that your value was off?
No, I don't think anyone's ever come at me like that, but they've always, but you get some people who are like, no, I don't know. I think I want to list for this. I think I still want to list for this. Let's see what happens. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny when those happen, and then like exactly what you thought was going to happen happens, and you're like, so do you want to go back to my plan yet?
You know what's cool is early on in my career, I really didn't know how to field those kinds of people who had those unrealistic expectations of value and, the I know what I have crowd. And now I feel so much more confident and to be able to handle those kind of, thoughts or standpoints on it. Because beforehand, it was like I had someone who they were a prospective seller during the hot, market of the pandemic. And they were like, oh, I think I'm going to, I know I can get 700,000 for the view of my house or whatever. Not a single comp on the same road that was bigger than her place, nicer than her place, was selling over like 500, 525.
No.
And I'm like, we are so off on value. And so like that relationship kind of fizzled out, or at least the prospect there.
Was that the one in Pflugerville?
No. I'm not gonna say where it's at,
Okay,
just be extra careful. Be extra. It's still a good relationship that I have, but that prospect kind of fizzled out because we just didn't see eye to eye on value. And what do you know? It's not sold, so there's that.
Well, I had a client today actually. They asked me, "Hey, what are we listing our house at?" And I go, 375. Is that cool? That was the text message I sent. And he said, "You're the expert. I trust you." And I'm like, those are the clients I love.
You're damn right.
Yes, thank you. Finally.
So are you? You worked with and we won't say the name, but you worked with is it an iBuyer type brokerage before?
Yes, I did. I worked for them for a year, and this was when things were still crazy, right?
Gotcha, yeah.
And the reason I decided to try it was because they literally told me, you're going to get about 60 leads a month.
Gotcha.
Wow.
And I did.
Oh, really?
I did. I would get anywhere from 50 to 70 listing leads every month. So I listed a lot of properties that year that I worked for them, but I worked like a slave.
Really?
I kid you not. Like, I worked every day. I put in long hours. The only time I ever got any time off was when I left the country.
Wow.
And they literally I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it was a great learning experience because I did a lot of transactions. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of different personality types, which was huge for me because as an appraiser, we're not really working with the public and working with people. And I've always been more of an introvert. So it forced me to work with a lot of different personality types. A lot of different transactions, a lot of different, issues. It was good experience.
Interesting.
What are some of the obstacles that you found working at that company and being in that kind of environment, aside from like scheduling? Because 60, 70 leads a month is insane. But what was some of the there's not a lot of iBuyer programs out there anymore. So like, what was the writing on the wall, or like, did you kind of see that coming? What was your perspective while you were in the midst of it?
So I saw the writing on the wall when the market shifted. Okay, when last summer, June to be exact, when they raised interest rates for the first time, that's when I saw the writing on the wall. I said, okay, party's over. This is coming to an end. They're going to continue to raise rates. It's going to kill the market. Prices are already too high. Not a good environment to be in when prices are going down and there's uncertainty, to be an iBuyer, not a good time. Right. And then they saw what was happening. They were getting less leads. And so they preemptively decided to restructure some things. And it was not in our best interest.
So that's when you were like, I need to change up my environment here.
That's when I was like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
This has been great, but I'm done. It was just clear to me that they did not really care about their agents. And they wanted to take from us so that they could feed the big cats at the top. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm out on this.
Yeah. Isn't that just how it goes, though? I remember my mom during the pandemic, she got let go after having a record year at her company. But the big wigs didn't give up their private jets. They didn't give up anything like that. So it just stays, it's like a broken record. No matter what industry you're in, the top keeps getting fed.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to be surrounded by people that see the bigger picture and probably less corporate, more agent centric, if that makes sense. What are you doing now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a partner at my own brokerage.
What?
That's awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. Real Estate Dragonfly.
What? That's cool.
It's me and really good friend of mine. Her name is Jamie Fletcher. We started the brokerage. I actually worked with her at the iBuyer.
Okay.
And that's how we got to know each other. And after we left that company, and she got her broker license. We were like, let's do it. Let's start a
Nice.
brokerage.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing in the market right now from your perspective?
You know, it's really tough out there because I feel like most of the people who are buying right now are people who have a lot of cash or a lot of money. I feel like the middle class is getting kind of squeezed out of the housing market right now. It's very slow for buyers, especially when they're staring down the barrel of an 8% interest rate.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. I mean, you know, you get these people who are scraping together a down payment or what have you, you know, it just doesn't make sense for them. Not only that, but I think the big thing that's hurting home sales right now is the leasing market, which since the market shifted, Jamie and I have been focusing more on leasing because we're seeing more and more people who are qualified to buy, but they don't want to buy right now. And so they want to lease a house. And so we've been filling that need. And then also they become a future client. You know, when the market gets to a more comfortable place for them, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, so I've seen this many times, like you'll see a house listed for $500,000 and you'll see the same house listed for rent. Right. And you look at $500,000, you know, your mortgage is upwards of $4,000, right? A month on that. But then you could lease it for $2,700.
Yeah. Like no brainer there.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Even if you were in a position to buy, you might go, you know what? I think prices might go down. So maybe I rent this for a year and then I buy it from you.
Because with interest rates at 500,000, I mean, the mortgage is like, I don't know, close to $4,000 maybe. Yeah. And so if they would much rather rent right now for $2,700 than spend an extra $1,300 every month. Yeah.
Exactly. The spread is about, and actually I don't remember where I saw this statistic, but the spread is about 52%. Between what you could lease a property for and what you could buy it for. Wow. And that's a huge issue in our industry right now for the housing market. It's a huge issue because one of the reasons that people want to buy is not because typically your mortgage was less than renting, right? That was what we would tell people. Oh, stop renting. Your mortgage will be way less. Now it's completely the opposite.
That's why the cash buyers are winning right now because they're not affected by the interest rate. But now the home prices have gone down a little bit. You know, I think depending on which zip code you're looking at, probably an average of about 25 to 30% across the board here in the Austin area. And I think that's healthy because with the interest rates rising, you have to offset that somehow. And it's crazy to see, like when you run numbers and I look at it and I go, if I have to place myself in a buyer's shoes right now and look at this $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 house and then compare it to what the rents are around, it's like, okay, now I got to really consider it versus before it was like, oh, a 3% interest rate. I got no brainer. Let's lock this in. And that same payment is so much more now because of interest rates. So the way that you win is by either, you know, if you are a buyer in the market, you got to do a buy down, or new construction's offering very heavy incentives, which is fantastic. Just closed on one last week, got one next week where it's sub 6%. One of them was sub 5%. That's a win. I'll chalk that up as a win for my clients, and they feel good about it. But we're having to have those really honest conversations with people because last interview we talked to Jen and she said, you're not selling a house, you're selling a payment. People have to be able to afford the house that you're selling them. And right now, shit's tough. It just is. Like everyone's feeling it. So you just gotta have a very careful and intentional approach about house buying if that's what you're wanting to do right now. With
the caveat, because we have Monday morning we have a call besides our mastermind, a Zoom call, and last week we had over close to 20 agents that joined, and agents across the U.S., like we're specifically talking about Austin, but in California and New Jersey, Florida, they're seeing a different market. It's very interesting because, Shane, he's in California right now, and he's seeing houses still go in multiple offers, right?
And his average price point's $1.3 million.
Yeah. And
he's in a different stratosphere than we are.
What state is Russ in? Do you remember?
He's international. No. I'm pretty sure Russ is international,
No,
is he not?
He's here in the U.S. He attends our Power Hour.
I'm gonna challenge
every
you on
Monday at 11 a.m. and he's doing multiple deals. And I'm like, okay, so they're seeing different. But I think my perspective is it might be coming to them too.
Yeah, it might just take a little bit longer. And, and Austin is one of those markets that just blew up. We had so much migration into Austin and prices just went so incredibly crazy, because of that. So I think it's different than in California because California didn't get a lot of that migration. I think a lot of their appreciation was obviously fueled by lower interest rates, but I feel like it was a little more, it wasn't as inflated as it was here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
So
we did have a big skyrocket as compared to a lot of other markets. Other markets went up, but not like, in my opinion, not like Austin.
No.
I don't get to do this very often, John.
Oh, no. No, I think it's like number 4 or 5.
You were wrong.
No.
He's in Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan, Canada.
No.
Russ? Yeah. Okay. I knew he was in Canada. I didn't remember which province it was.
Okay.
But yeah, Canada's hot right now too. Like if you ask like Calgary's on fire. No pun intended, because they have a team called the Flames there. Like Toronto, always hot. It's a bunch of corporate bigwigs there. So yeah, it's interesting always to hear different agents' perspectives, because we're sitting here like, all right, guys, here's what we got to do in this tough market. And they're over there going, bro, we put a sign out, it gets sold. Like they're still experiencing that. So the perspective has been, kind of sobering that what we're experiencing is not the case everywhere.
Yeah. But the thing is like, even if it does come to them, to our listeners that are in these other markets, like, be prepared. Like, we're going through it, right? And so we're talking out strategies and solutions right now for these agents that are in other markets.
Our shift came out of nowhere.
It did.
I mean, we were we were doing flips, we were doing investments, and that thing changed so fast, and there was no sign of it ever coming, ever happening at the rate that it did, and we got slammed by it. So,
did you have any listings during the shift?
Oh yeah.
Were you seeing like, were you seeing a big, any pushback from the sellers?
Oh, major. So I had a listing in Pflugerville that went on the market the very same week that interest rates went up. And, we went on the market based on what the comp said, and it just was not selling. And I kept having to come to her and say, this is where we need to drop the price to. And she kept fighting me on it because she's one of those clients that had already had a plan for how she was going to spend the money. What I mean?
Oh, boy. So she was married to the number that was projected to be earned. So she's like, well, I can't give this up.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to work harder.
Right.
Like, that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely her mindset. And she, would be like, oh, well, let's change up the pictures. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I did multiple open houses. I mean, I bent over backwards for this woman. And ultimately, I ended up, when I left the brokerage I was at, which was the iBuyer, because they were an iBuyer, but they also listed houses for sale, which was what my role was. And when I left them, I let go of her because I was like, look, I can't. Our relationship wasn't really good anymore. And, she was driving me nuts, and, not all business is worth it. Right. So I let her go, and she went to, one of the other team members who sold it 2 months later for less than what I had told her to drop it to before.
Really? That's tough.
Well, because it sucks. During that time was tough because you're having to go back on almost on a weekly basis with bad news. You're coming back saying, hey, things haven't gotten any better. Here's what's going on in the markets. It's not favorable for us. We need to get ahead of it if we're going to sell your property quickly. And the buy, if you're not in real estate, all that just sounds like excuses. But it's like, no, this is literally what we're seeing. You're seeing it tangible in the number, like how many days on market are increasing. You're seeing it by the amount of price decreases that have been, if you log into your MLS, I remember during the pandemic, it was like new listings were like a very tiny thing. And it was like price increases were this huge bar.
Yeah.
And then price decreases were this really tiny bar. And then for the last year, anytime you log in, it's like, that's all flipped now. It's boom, here's the big bars of all the bad things, like price decreases, and your pending sales are like this big. So yeah, it's so crazy how fast and aggressive that shift happened.
This conference that we recently went to, they were talking about focusing on sellers that need to sell and that not sellers that want to sell. And so like, because there's a lot of sellers out there that need to sell, like they still have equity, that probably since property values went up so much, their taxes are so high that now that they can't afford their payment. And so there's, you know, certain campaigns that you can do or strategies that you can do to find those sellers, which Remind is a great program online. If you don't know about it, Remind, you can actually look up how much equity a lot of the houses have. And
you can kind of make like custom list of criteria to have a really focused attack point on a neighborhood or zip code, whatever.
Yeah. And you were sending out letters, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So I'm using something called Grizzly Leads, and I'm pairing the information against Remind, because what'll happen is they get kind of curious. They want to know what their home values are, but I'm not going to give you my email, my name, or my phone number. Here's just my address. How the hell do you want me to get you your value if I can't even email you or get you this info? So if I get an incomplete lead, I plug in the address into Remind. If it's not in the county tax website, it pulls up the information on Remind. I at least have a name and an address, and I'll write a letter to them saying, hey, I received your inquiry, but I need more information.
Got it. I love that. And one thing I always do when people ask me, hey, how much is my house worth? Just to get an appointment, like if they're interested in potentially selling, I'll say, I think a rough estimate is, you know, 1XYZ. However, I need to see it in person to give you an accurate.
Like there's so many factors. I can't just give you a value based on internet information.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What was the process like at the iBuyer brokerage? Were they just giving you leads and then you'd show up to their house, or what did that look like?
So the leads would come through, and most of the time, the way it comes through is they're requesting a cash offer. Okay. So I'm going to present this cash offer, but then I'm going to tell them, hey, if you don't like this offer, we can list and we can get you more, right? And when everything was crazy, most people wanted to list.
Yeah.
You know, the only people that wanted to take the cash offers were people who were like seriously in a hurry, and it just, you know, made sense for them. But for the most part, I could get them a lot more listing them for sale than they could get, you know, on a cash offer. And so I would, you know, get the listing. And, you know, during, you know, before interest rates went up, when everything was selling in a weekend, it was an easy close.
Oh, absolutely. I lost a listing to an iBuyer program, and I couldn't even be mad at it. I was like, they're offering you this flexible closing date that's going to make it easier on you. You don't have to show your house. So there was a lot of appeal behind it. And they were my friends, and yes, it hurt not to be able to help them. However, it was the best thing for them. And I told them that at the time. I said, I'm probably not going to be like, this was probably a few weeks before they like caught on that the market was shifting, and they got this really aggressive offer. And I was like, I don't even know if I can get you that if I listed it.
Like perfect timing.
Oh man, it was like the perfect concoction. So,
how are they surviving now? These iBuyer companies?
They're not.
They're not.
They're not. I mean, I hear through the grapevine, because I still know people who were there. They've been laying off people left and right. At least I know, you know, where I was at. So my prediction is they are going to go away.
Okay.
Well, perhaps in certain markets. In this market, they're going to go away.
That my next question was for the agent that is considering joining a brokerage that it might be an iBuyer. So that pretty much answers my question then, is should looking back, you know, as an agent, would you recommend to an agent considering it to join an iBuyer program? So I know the answer then, based off of what you said, is if they're going to be going away, then no.
not if you want stability.
Yeah, I just, in the current market climate we're in, it just doesn't make sense, you know. And quite honestly, they're not even looking for people.
Really?
Probably couldn't get hired if you wanted to, and they're trying to lay off like 10% of their workforce at a time.
Yeah.
That sucks. Well, what's working for you right now? So we are in a very interesting market. What tactics, what sales methods, what networking, what's working for you?
Honestly, like I said, we've kind of shifted to where we are really primarily focused on leasing. And so that's what I've been focused on. And it works for me too, because, at this point, I'm no longer a full-time realtor. I have a full-time job. And then real estate for me is like a lucrative side hustle,
Nice.
right? So for me, I have transitioned into more focusing on leasing. But it's funny because when you're out there and you're doing business comes to you, right? When you're out there, no matter what kind of business you're doing, when you're out there and you're doing business will come to you. And so I actually have a cash buyer that I'm under contract with right now, who I met her because she was looking to lease a home. And then she just decided, she was talking to her dad, who's apparently very wealthy. And he was like, why don't I just buy you guys a house? And she's like, okay. And then she comes to me and she's like, hey, so my dad just wants to buy us a house. Can you help us? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, if he's feeling generous, I'll take one too.
I know, right?
It's not too much of a burden on him.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, I took them out one day and we looked at 10 houses. They found one they love and we're under contract now. So, when you're out there doing business, even if all you're doing is leasing and that's all you can get, if you're out there, business will come.
Well, I view leasing as like planting seeds, right? It's a lot of work for a much smaller payout. However, that's future business.
Exactly.
That's also like they tell their friend, it's the same. It's just anything. It's consistent. It's planting seeds. You need money today, like you need it next year, like you need it 3 years from now. It's always about like just taking care of whatever their needs are, because it's all about the client, not necessarily about our pocketbook. If you prioritize the client experience, the money will follow.
Right.
And a lot of people, I think when things get tough, people compromise on their values and like what they're about. And I think a lot of people think that they're client focused, and then their pocketbook tightens up a little bit and you start like not being as, maybe customer service centric, or you blow things off that aren't a big payday. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an opportunity for those who still put service first to excel in this kind of market.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's so much more lease opportunities because of the price difference between how much you pay per month with a mortgage and how much you pay per month with a lease. And I mean, for a lot of buyers, it makes more sense. I mean, honestly, it makes more sense to lease.
Well, if I had a crystal ball back in early 2022, I would have sold my house for, it's probably lost about $150 worth of perceived value. I would have sold it at the height, probably rented for 2 years, and now I could get a great deal on a new construction.
Yeah.
But hindsight's always 20/20.
For sure.
But yeah, there's such all my leases that I've done this year have been getting old lease clients into better lease opportunities, because man, I remember one of them that I did, there was they had like a slanted kitchen. It was the craziest thing. It was almost like at a decline. And they were like, here's this shit box for like $2,100 a month just because it's in Austin. And then we just got them into a new place that's fully renovated, super awesome, in a great location for $1,800.
Oh,
like what a win for them. No slanted kitchen, great space. It looks cool. Like, I don't know. So there's opportunities to even revisit old lease clients, which is kind of cool because they're probably paying a rate that's hiked up and there's better options out there now.
Yeah. Do you have any cool stories when it comes to real estate that you could share? Let's see here.
Cool stories?
Cool story, like exciting or crazy or what was that question we asked Jeremy Knight a long time ago when it was like, any stories?
I don't remember.
Man, what was it?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Been a while. We gotta have Jeremy back on if he's up for it.
You think he would be?
I don't know. I'll ask him, see what he says.
Yeah, you have any crazy stories?
Oh my God. Like so many weird, with real estate, oh God.
I feel like you've shared some before.
I know that I have in Mastermind, and now nothing's coming to me. Well, I mean, I guess the most recent thing, you guys know about that new TREC rule that says that you have 2 calendar days to respond you know, if an agent or whatever, which I look at that rule and I go 2 calendar days, like that's pretty lenient. Like really you want a response faster than that. I mean, so I actually ended up turning an agent in for
Dang.
I did. And you know, it's not like I'm out to get other agents, but let me just tell you, I am tired of agents that don't do what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? I mean, we're not asking a lot, you know, just show up and do what you're supposed to do for your client. And, you know, she didn't. She dropped the ball. And so I turned her into track and, you know, with my, you know, I talked to my broker about it and she was like, yeah, I mean, this is crazy. And basically what happened was I had a lease client that really liked her property. And we submitted an application. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I had a lease client and really liked her property. Whoops. We put in an application. There was another application that was turned in. And so it was going to come down between us and that application. Well, the first thing that happened was it took her more than 24 hours to just respond to me that she received the application. I texted her multiple times saying, did you receive it? Did you receive it?
So frustrating. It takes 5 seconds to send a text.
It takes 5 seconds to look at your email and tell me you got.
Yeah.
And she didn't. It took her more than 24 hours to tell me that she received it. Right. And then it took almost a week before we finally got an answer.
Wow.
Even, you know, and that's frustrating for my clients. And then she sent me this text and she was like, so, your client's application was good, but darn, the other one was better. However, nothing is final yet, so just hang on. And then she said something about some other house she had. And I was like, oh, darn, they really wanted this house. It was really perfect for them. So I got with my client and I told them what happened and they were like, okay. And they're like, well, is there anything we could do to make our application better? I mean, obviously it was a close call. So, you know, is there anything we can do? So I sent her a text and I said, hey, is there anything that my clients can do to, you know, make their application better? And she didn't respond.
Yeah.
The next day, I hear from my client and he's like, listen, I'm willing to pay 6 months up front.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they have money. They could buy a house if they wanted to,
Yeah.
right? But they don't want to buy a house because they don't know how long they're going to be in Austin.
Yeah.
So
What?
Is that your...
what is going on?
Calling emergency service.
Oh, my God.
We've got an emergency in the studio.
No worries.
What in the world was that? I don't
If
know
you're
how
listening to
that
this, tell
happened.
Katie I love her.
I know. I'm like, how did that even happen? Okay. That is crazy town. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay, so anyways, and so the next day I texted her. I said, hey, my client is willing to pay 6 months of rent up front.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. No answer. No response. Nothing. Crickets. 5 days later, it's Friday morning. I get a text message from her saying, hey, I'm so sorry. I've been sick with COVID and I put everything on hold, but is your client still interested? 5 days later.
Wow.
Literally 5 days later. And I'm sitting here going, are you kidding me right now? Look, I've had COVID multiple times and I wasn't so down that I couldn't send a text.
Was this just a regular agent, or was she working for like a iBuyer, or I mean,
No,
not
this
like
is
Property management company or something?
No, she's not a new agent. You know,
Wow.
she's working for like a flat rate type of brokerage, but
Gotcha.
she's not a new agent.
Yeah.
You know, she should know how things work.
Yeah. Well, at this conference that we were at recently, like the biggest applause that this one speaker got was
Probably of the whole conference.
of the whole conference.
Was someone saying agents need to answer their phones. And everyone was just like,
It was like the loudest applause I
Yes.
ever heard.
Absolutely. I mean, hallelujah. Like, how hard is it? And so I got with my broker and I said, look, I am so pissed right now. I said, because number one, my clients finalized another home on Thursday.
one that they probably weren't as happy with as what would have been that one, right?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like the other house had something that they really wanted. It had a shop. Okay, so they were looking at houses like kind of out in the country and
Yeah.
at a shop. The one they went with, honestly, is probably a better location and it's a better house, but it doesn't have a shop.
Yeah.
Okay, so overall, they're not super disappointed, but at the same time, that was the house that they wanted. And so for her to finally come back to me 5 days later and say, "Hey, is your client still interested?" And I put my life on hold for 5 days, it's because I was sick with COVID. I was like, you know what, this is not acceptable. And so I ended up sending an email and copying my broker and her broker and, detailing everything that happened and how I felt like it was not acceptable, that she did a disservice to her client and to my client at this point. And that, here is the TREC rule. Here's the link to it. I'm turning you in.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, when I told you that my client was offering the 6 months of rent, that was an offer.
Yeah.
It needed a response, and you did not respond.
And they didn't respond. Wow. Well, the thing is that you're protecting future clients of potentially that person too.
Right.
And it's our fiduciary duty to represent our clients in the best capacity. And if our clients are not being represented, then they need to be protected, right? I mean, that's somewhat of what this lawsuit's about, right? Like they're trying to protect the consumer.
Well, in that specific scenario, it's so funny because if you're at home with COVID, like, I don't know about you guys, but that's like that sounds like a 5-day vacation to me, where you're probably on your phone 90% of the time anyway, or you're sitting at home watching Netflix.
Yeah, well,
So-
we don't know the situation.
Yeah, we don't know, but there's a lot of assumptions going on.
Yeah.
But I know when I had it, I'd stayed at home, but I wasn't. It's not like my phone stayed in the other room. I was still able to conduct business, and I would get other people, like either teammates or something, to assist my client, because that's what my job is to make sure that my clients are taken care of.
If you can't, then you need to have someone cover for you.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, in that specific scenario, she's making more money here than the other side, right? Like when you're the listing agent of a lease,
Yeah.
you're making, probably 70, 60%, whatever it is. It's higher than what the tenant agent is.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this
Man,
is
like,
this is a flat fee agent.
oh yeah, true.
No, I mean, she works for a flat fee brokerage in that it's a big brokerage. You pay a flat fee to be a part of it.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
No, but she's making 70% or whatever, But my thing,
I would have narked on her too.
yeah, I'm sorry. And we are a self-policing industry. If we
Yes.
don't do it, then nobody does.
Here. You can go back to the beginning of this podcast. I said the barrier to entry is too low. We have a bunch of people who don't take this job seriously. It's either I don't know. They just don't take it as their responsibilities. They don't uphold the oaths basically that we make to our clients of being the expert, keeping their best interest, being timely. All these things that we take so seriously, and when it's not reciprocated, it sucks. Yeah. Like there's nothing worth. Like one of our new agents that's on our team, she's Deanna. She's had a hell of a time with leases and getting responses from this listing agent for a lease that she likes. Yeah. And it's like, I don't understand. Like I just had to tell her it's so sad. I was like, welcome to real estate. Like I feel like 70% of my stress is from other agents.
Yes.
Like no kidding.
Absolutely. It's just crazy. Yeah, that is so true. And I always feel just such a sense of relief anytime I'm working with an agent who's Johnny on the spot, doing what they're supposed to do. You can get a hold of them. Like I'm always like,
I always tell them, I'm like, it was so great working with
Absolutely.
you. Like, thank you for being the agent that you are, because you made it easier for everybody.
Right.
And that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this community effort to get this thing done. Because at the end of the day, we all have a somewhat similar goal. While maybe having different interests, we have the same goals to get a house sold or bought, whatever it is. We need to collaborate with each other. Let's make it as easy on each other as possible by getting some of the basics out of the way, like answering each other.
Yeah. And just answering a text message. It's very, very simple. And if you're so sick that you cannot answer a text message, you need to get someone to cover for you. And so I turned her in. I don't feel bad about it. We'll see what happens. TREC has already responded to me that they got the complaint and they're going to.
You shouldn't feel bad about it. We need better agents in this industry.
Yeah.
We need people that are hungry like us and that take this seriously as a full-time job. Or if you're just whenever you take on a client, even if you're not full-time, when you agree to take on a client, you are agreeing to do all the things that we mentioned before at a high level.
Yeah.
Right.
I had an agent that was a friend of mine, and and they were always complaining about how contracts would fall through, and I eventually actually had a contract with this person, and I realized it wasn't their client's fault. And they would bring their own problems into the like their personal problems into the transaction, and it would ruined our transaction too, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so what I realized is like this agent that continually complains about the transactions they're in is putting their personal problems in every single transaction, unfortunately. And so there's a really big learning lesson there where it's like, you know, it's hard. It is hard, you know, to like separate personal life from transactions as an agent, because
I don't think it is.
really,
No, not at all.
well,
I mean-
your problems may not be as bad as some of these.
Fair, but I think like when you go to any other job, like it doesn't
That's
matter.
true, yeah,
like
yeah.
you don't bring your BS into work, and if you do, you're like written up, or like someone talks to you out of it and tells you to leave it at home. Like in real estate, it shouldn't be any difference just because you're self-managed.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
What are your thoughts about that?
No, I totally agree because, you know, I know me personally, I've been sick as a dog and I still worked.
Yeah.
I may not have gone out to meet clients, but I still worked,
Yeah.
you know. And, you know, for me, even though I do technically have a daytime, full-time job, I mean, I'm remote, so I have a lot of freedom, but even though I'm not technically a full-time agent, I still treat it like I'm a full-time agent.
Right.
And, you know, which means that I'm basically working all the time.
yeah.
But I enjoy it, you know, and I love real estate. I love what I do. And so, yeah, I mean, I put in the time, you know, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I don't care. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
Yeah, there's been a lot going around, and I've just been seeing this, you know, this very generic thing that we've all heard, but it's so true. It's who you hire matters. And I think it doesn't even go by like, I don't care if you're a full-time agent, part-time, it doesn't matter. It's how when you get the client, you service them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what we're here to do. And so if that's, you know, 10 a year or 100 a year, it doesn't matter. It's you providing really solid service to your clients. And that's what I expect of you as the agent on the other end as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Guess what? We're in a tough market. Get a helmet. We're in a tough market. And you know what? We need to thin the herd. There's just not enough business to go around right now. So if you're not going to do your business, I'm not going to help you.
Well, based on projections, I've seen anywhere from 30 to 80%, depending on what happens with this lawsuit, is estimated to leave the industry.
30 to 80.
It's a big jump, but hey,
So you're saying 20% is
okay,
left?
imagine this. Imagine this, though. Think about how many people sell a house. Like when we talked to Jeremy Knight, let's go back to that.
Yeah.
What did he say? 4% of agents in Austin sold a house in January. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's a continuing trend, the odds that 96% of Austin realtors have sold a house any of those months is low. There's a lot of people with their license not doing shit with it. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
And I wish they would get out because it would make it I think it's just all around better if you get out, if you're not in this to win it.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking clients like one, 2 transactions a year and you're doing it poorly, get out, man. You're not doing this industry a service. You're not doing your client a service. It's kind of like selfish to stay in. Like, I think that may be me being harsh, but
Yeah.
I just like Tiffany said, I think there's too many agents.
Yeah.
I think there's too many people that have their license that don't take this seriously. I really do.
I think in Texas, our contract, as compared to the Missouri contract, if I'm not mistaken, we clearly lay out, based off of what's on that trial in that lawsuit, we clearly lay out what the buyer's getting, right? Like the buyer's agent is getting, and how much we charge in totality, right? And then how much we're giving to the buyer's agent. And I think there was a big misconception on the sellers in that lawsuit were saying, hey, why am I paying the buyer's agent that's negotiating against me? Right.
There was just I would love to see what a Missouri contract looks like because I have no reference point for that. And so it's hard for me to hear this information and go, how the hell did they not know this? Because when you hire me, I have to have the conversation with you. You are hiring me at X percentage. Of X percent, I'm going to give this percentage to the buyer's agent because I want motivated and educated and represented buyers who are serious about purchasing your property to come look at your house. Because if you take that away, the alternative is going to suck for everybody. Because now buyers who could barely afford their closing costs or whatever because of this crazy landscape that we're in are now having to come out of pocket for their buyer's agent representation. And the listing agent, if you're just getting a bunch of non-represented people, you're doing more work than ever before, having to go open those doors, have private showings for these unrepresented clients. I don't think people thought it through when they were like, oh yeah, you can throw a buyer's agent's, commission out the window. That's bad for everybody.
And the buyer themselves being uneducated and not knowledgeable, I think that opens it up to even more lawsuits, right? Because if they're purchasing something and the sellers, right, the seller's agent is the only one representing the seller, right, that leaves a big margin for error, right?
Yeah. Well, there's also something I learned about this lawsuit that I was massively unaware of. I thought this was a small handful of homeowners that were banding together to make this lawsuit. It's over 250,000 homeowners. 260,000 homeowners came together for this lawsuit.
No way.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes. I did not know that. I thought it was like 7 or like 70.
But another thing is I mean, if they're complaining about the money they're giving to the agent during that time frame, the prices were way higher.
Yeah.
Right? So they were making way more money than what they were now.
I just don't understand the conspiracy aspect of it. The thing that NAR was found guilty of was a conspiracy to raise agent commissions.
Interesting.
That's what I don't understand. Because if I'm selling your property and I'm going to give you 3% to bring a motivated buyer to buy this property, like if anything, I'm giving up part of my commission to pay you to do so. Like, I don't understand how that raises it. I don't know. It's home values are not determined by the commissions that you make. They're a product of your market. They're a product of your recently sold comps. They're a product of what people are willing to pay for them. No. It has nothing to do with me saying, hey, brother, if we go 6% commission, I'm going to split it with you at this price. That's nonsense.
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm so done with it.
He's fired up, guys.
I just didn't think it was going to get to this point. I didn't think it was ever going to get to this point. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, truly believe that this was a bunch of, and I'm not going to, like, this is going to sound really bad, and I don't mean it this way, but the jury is working class Missouri people, and I think they like had a chance to really stick it to a corporate entity, and I think that's what they did.
Interesting.
Took 2.5 hours to deliberate. That's not a long time. I think they had their minds made up before the trial even started.
Interesting. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So Tiff, you have a book that you just wrote.
I do. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's not a real estate book.
Thank God. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. A lot of those don't age well. But no, I wrote a contemporary romance fiction novel. It's something that I had been working on and off for the past 10 years. And I sat on the manuscript for about a year before I decided to go out and self-publish.
That's so cool.
On Amazon. It was so easy. It was a little scary how easy it was. But yeah, it's called Bud Break. You can find it on Amazon. They have the Kindle edition, or you can get it in print. I have it.
Ooh, looky there.
That's
Sorry, get off of me. Go back to her.
Yeah, you talk and say it. Show it.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it's called Bud Break. It's set in the Texas Hill Country. And
is it based on a true story?
No, it's not based on a completely true story, but I did take some pieces from my life. Some of the characters are definitely based on people I knew. but it chronicles the story of a woman named Ruth who is having to start her life over because her husband, who was an attorney for the mob, went to federal prison.
Okay.
And so now she's having to start her life over and figure out what she wants to do. And she goes out to the Texas Hill Country.
Like Fredericksburg area?
Yeah, like Fredericksburg.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff about wine in it because I'm a huge wine enthusiast. I know way too much about wine and I also know a bit about winemaking. So that she goes to Fredericksburg and ends up taking a job at a vineyard. A winery.
That's cool.
Vineyard. And so there's, a lot about winemaking and that kind of thing also in the book. And it's a romance novel. So obviously she meets some handsome man. So
Nice.
There he was, the sun glistening off his body as he picked the grapes.
so
I'll do your audiobook.
There you go.
That's awesome.
We just actually went to Fredericksburg like a month or two ago, something like that, and it's really nice. We had a good time, and I was wondering like why Fredericksburg is so popular with wine, and it's apparently, I mean, obviously the soil is so rich in nutrients that's why in that area that's why there's so many vineyards.
Well, the true thing about Fredericksburg is that that's really where all the retail happens. Okay. So most of those winemakers that are there that have vineyards and wineries there, they get a lot of their grapes actually from the Lubbock area.
Really
Interesting.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the better grapes come from in Texas. Just the climate is better there for grapes because grapes they can be picky. And one of the things about grapes is if it's hot during the day, that's fine, but it needs to cool down at night. And here in Central Texas, we don't always get that.
Oh no, you can get some 90-degree nights. Yeah.
Yeah. So up, in the high plains, that's where the majority of the fruit comes from. A lot of the wineries there will also bring in fruit from California and other places. They make the wine there, right? But they don't always grow the grapes there, if that makes sense.
Man, I'm such a wine noob. I thought they literally just picked it right out there in their own little areas.
Yeah. Some of the wineries and vineyards do have their own, vines. There are a couple of them, like William Chris. They do a fantastic job, and they do a lot of their own grapes as well. But it takes time, and Fredericksburg obviously hasn't been making wine for as long as California has. So it takes time for the vines to mature and get to the point where they are actually producing good fruit.
Yeah. What made you want to write a book?
So I actually, as a kid growing up, I wanted to be an author. That's what I wanted to do.
That's cool.
Right.
And now you are.
And
That's awesome. That's so cool.
People were buying your book already. I saw on the text thread.
Oh, I know. Yes. So far I've just been putting it on my social media, telling my friends and family about it. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to come here today to spread the word a little bit more. I definitely need to look into, other avenues of, promoting my book. But,
Where can they find it?
On Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Cool.
do a search on Amazon.
Is it like Kindle? Is it hardback? What paperback? What's the...
Yeah. So you can get the Kindle version or you can get it paperback.
Cool.
Either one.
My wife's a big romance reader. I'll have to let her know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My wife's friends are big romance readers, so I'll tell them about it.
Yeah, no.
Katie's into some interesting stuff. I've caught a couple of lines of some pages. I'm like, okay, all right, that's not normal, but okay.
That's funny.
So yeah, I'm just super excited to finally get it out there because, like I said, I sat on the manuscript for a year because I was it's as an artist or whatever it is you're doing, it's very hard to put your work out there, right? It's a scary thing to put your work out there, especially when, I'd never written a book before. And obviously my career took me in a completely different direction. But I knew it was something I always wanted to do. And when I got my degree, I actually got my degree in English and, focused on creative writing and literature and things like that. And because that's what I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy real estate, and obviously it's what has, I've done very well at career-wise. But, this was, my dream.
Yeah. I think it's important to find what you're passionate about. And I can really, I think John and I can relate to the artists being vulnerable with their art, because John and I were in a band together, and I remember the first time I would show like my parents one of our songs, and you're like, okay, like I'm waiting for the payoff. I'm waiting for someone to say like their critique of the art. And my mom would always be like, because we were metal, we were like the screamy, that kind of stuff. And mom would be like, y'all should do like a ballad like Bon Jovi does. And I'm like, okay, like that wasn't what I was hoping to hear, but yeah, I think that's super cool that you found what you're passionate about. Like I love that you pursued something that you wanted to do since you were a kid. So many people don't do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is like you started it and you finished it.
I mean, it took me forever, but I did, you know, and now that I've done it, I'm motivated to do the next one, and it won't take me 10 years this time.
There you go.
So cool.
There you go. So where can people find you? Online, or do you have Instagram, Facebook?
Yes, I do. For Sale by Tiffany is
Perfect.
my Instagram handle. That's where you can find me on Instagram. On Facebook, it's just my name, Tiffany Proske. Yeah.
Well, go check her book out, guys.
Yeah,
On Amazon.
I'm excited.
Bud Break
Bud
by
Break.
Tiffany Proske.
Bud Break. Hey, Real Estate Virgins Nation, go get the book. Let her know how it is.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and close this out?
Let's do it. Hey guys, if you found any value out of today's episode, first of all, we just thank you so much for listening. For our returning listeners, you guys help support us and keep us going. We love hearing stories of your successes with tactics and things that you learned from this podcast, and we're here to cheer you on as you go out and dominate your local markets. If you're a new listener, go ahead and subscribe to our channels. We'd love to connect with you. If there's anything you'd like us to discuss specifically on this podcast, or if you just want to reach out and ask for advice, we're totally open. We handle that stuff all day in our Instagram DMs.
Monday Mastermind, we have a special guest.
Yes. This upcoming Monday, we've got Suman Kim, Mr. Top like 1% or 0.1% in the company that we're at. Absolute killer.
November 6th, 2023. If you're listening in the future, it already happened.
Sucks to be you.
Yeah,
that's why you got to tune into Power Hour, baby. It's every Monday at 11 a.m. More tech, more. We're changing things up a little bit. This podcast here, you're used to me and John outlining some of the more like tactical things. It's become very cumbersome on us, so we are splitting it up. We are doing interviews only on the podcast if we can help it, and you're going to find more of the tactics and practical things about real estate in our Power Hour. So we'll see you guys there.
See ya. Bye.